Listening to the credos this morning, I was reminded of a passage in the scriptures in the Gospels where Jesus is teaching, and there's so many people around on the land that Jesus gets into a boat, and he's teaching from the boat because there's too many people. And so standing on the water, on the sea, looking back at the people who are on solid ground. But the people can't quite understand even the disciples, what exactly Jesus is trying to teach them. And I'm reminded that when we think that our beliefs are solid, when we think that we're standing on solid ground with our beliefs, then we can't understand what's real and what's true, that there needs to be a humility, that Jesus standing in that boat on the sea was reminding us that there is, when we're talking about issues of God and death and evil and life, we are talking about something so vast and so big that it can't be fully comprehended. But the one thing that we have to remember is to never feel like we are so right, that we are standing on such solid ground with our beliefs and other people are wrong, that we make other people wrong, bad, try to kill people, and all the things that go on in the world because people don't understand. They think their belief is so true and so right that they can't accept and embrace other people with different beliefs. You gave us an incredible example this morning of what it means to speak your truth with humility and openness and to listen to other people's truths. People who are some of you are deeply connected and have this deep connection with God and the Spirit. Others who don't, and you don't fight amongst yourself about that. But here's the thing I want us to all remember in this church, that our religion here is very personal, as we heard, but it's never private. There's a difference between being personal and private. Our religion is about the world out there. These beliefs that you talked about are about how do you vote, how do you act, how do you treat others. It's not private. It's very public. And that's why when the civil rights movement was happening, this church was out in front. Right now, when issues come up in this community, we're right out there in front because we may believe differently, but one thing that we all agree on is that we need to take these beliefs and get out in the world and make a difference for good. Because if we don't, people won't. Others won't. We cannot stand on the sidelines. You can't just take these personal beliefs and leave them there. Now, I want to just ask a question that I asked in the last hour and just find out, has anyone here ever been in a relationship and then broken up with someone? Just raise your hand if you've experienced a breakup in your life. All right, that's pretty much everybody. Bless those who would never have had a breakup in your life. So now, did the person who you broke up with or broke up with you treat you exactly the same after you were broken up as they did before? I doubt it, right? And did you treat them the same way? No. Probably not, right? I hope not. And you start to call the police sometimes, if depending on. You don't keep calling a person every day after you're broken up. They say, come on, stop calling me. We're not going out anymore. We're not together. We're divorced, whatever it is. But you can't keep calling every day, texting. And you can't just go up and give the person a big kiss on the lips and a hug, or they're going to let you know that that's no longer appropriate in this relationship. Because when a relationship changes, our behavior towards one another has to change with it. So I had a relationship when I was a senior in high school. And my girlfriend at the time, we used to do this thing where when one of us was at their locker getting stuff out of the locker, the other one would try to sneak up behind and just give them a hug, give each other a hug. It was very sweet. But once we broke up, you can bet I wasn't going to go up behind her in the locker and try to give her a hug, right? I was going to get a little elbow in the solar plexus or a boot heel on my toes, right? Because the relationship had changed, and we need to have different behavior towards one another when our relationship changed. This is a rite of passage. You are moving from one stage of life to another stage, and we are marking that with an indelible line right now in this ceremony, in this year. We are marking a transition in your lives. It's a rite of passage. And when one person in a community or a family has a rite of passage, everybody also goes through a rite of passage. So in another way, we're all being initiated this morning into a new relationship with these youth. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, when we cut the umbilical cord, when a new baby is born, we don't cut the ties between the mother and that child. As a matter of fact, cutting that cord is what makes those ties even more deep and the possibility of life and relationship real. Tonight, we are cutting a cord, the cord between the parent and child relationship that you have with your parents. And so, because we are cutting, I brought my sword. All right, so we're gonna have to just remember that there is a cut happening, and it's very important to remember. I'm gonna come down. I just want to come down there because we need to realize that this. Now, a sword has deep meaning, symbolic meaning. We know in the Bible, King Solomon had his sword, and he saved a baby who was, these two mothers were fighting over a baby, and King Solomon said they wanted him to decide because he was the wisest person. So King Solomon said, okay, I know what to do. Bring me the baby and I'll cut it in half. And one mother said, no, don't do it. Just give it to her. It's hers. It's hers. And then King Solomon knew exactly in that moment, he took the baby and gave it to the woman who said that, because he knew that the real mother would never let that baby be cut in half. The sword represents wisdom in many traditions, but also power. Your parents have that kind of love for you, like the woman in that story in the Bible. Your parents would do anything for your safety. They also know that you now have the power, as Tamara said, in your own lives over life and death, and decisions that you make from this point forward without your parents being around can create life, can also take a life, and it's very important. That's why your community surrounds you and loves you and prays for you at this moment in your life, in this moment in your journey. So, but here's the thing. You are now no longer in a parent-child relationship. You are now in that awkward stage between childhood and adulthood called adolescence. And in this stage, your parents are starting to give you more authority and decision-making power. They're not giving it all away, because that would be irresponsible. They are still legally and morally responsible for you in the world. And yet, they start to give you, can you hold this for a second? They start to give you more power and responsibility to make decisions in your life. And if you use that well, then they will give it to you more. But if you don't, they'll also take it away. And then it's going to take, trust is one of the hardest things to build and the quickest things to lose. So they will continue to hand you the power and the decision making in different areas of your life, in smaller areas, and if you do it well and responsibly, they will give you more and more opportunities as they see that you can handle the decisions that are before you, because we're not raising children, we're raising adults. Right. And so we want you to grow up. In 3-4 years, you'll be most likely out on your own, making these decisions without your parents, and you can go to prison and all the things that go along with being an adult in this world. And in this stage, we offer a lot to you in terms of our prayers, our love, and everything else. Now, can I have that back, please? So you need to give it back. Sometimes the parents are going to say, I'm sorry, this is a decision I can't let you make. And you need to understand and give that back. And that's part of being given the authority, is knowing when to give it back. And you can't get into a sword fight with your parents over these things. It's too important. So remember, they're still your parents. They still have a veto over decisions that you make about your life, but they don't have the total veto. They're trying to give you that kind of authority if you'll take it. Now, for our church, we have a different relationship with you too. We give you an entire room of the church. It's one of the best rooms in the entire church for the youth, and an entire full-time staff person, and all kinds of support and volunteer help, because we know that this stage that you're in is one of the most critical stages in anybody's life, and we want you to have every chance to do it well and to grow and prosper and be the best that you can be. So our relationship changes, and your parents' relationship changes, and how your parents treat you. If they continue to treat you like a child all the time, never letting you make any decisions, we know, parents, that those relationships are going to break down, and you're not going to have a strong adult relationship with your kids in the years to come. So it's a dance, hopefully, and not a sword fight with each other. But things have changed. As of today, we're cutting the cord. I want to say one more thing. And this has to do with the week that we've been through here in the United States of America and all the things that have happened. I know myself, and I imagine many of us have felt at moments this week like we were losing hope in the future. You start feeling like we're progressing, you start feeling like we're moving forward, and then things happen, decisions get made in Washington, and things happen on the streets in Boston and in Waco, outside of Waco, Texas, and these things start happening, and you start thinking, we're not progressing. And hope starts to drain from our sense, and cynicism starts to rear its head in our lives. And I'll tell you something, that you and what you've done today in speaking your truth before us in this way have given us a great deal of hope today. One of the greatest signs of hope this whole week. You've let us know that our future are in good hands. There are smart, intelligent, thoughtful, loving, caring, open, and humble people who are going to take on the future. And I want to say that we have to remember this week wasn't just about the bad things that happened. There were a lot of acts of heroism and courage. There were people who ran into, the bombs went off, and instead of running away, they ran in to help perfect strangers, putting their own lives at risk. We had paramedics and firemen and women and police going into these situations, some of them giving their lives in order to help make our world a better place. These are heroic acts. There was a doctor who ran the entire marathon, 26.2 miles, and then continued to run into the hospital and do surgery all night to help people. There were so many heroic acts that happened this week, and we have to remember that that's the spirit. You have a hero and a heroine, a hero and a shero, I've heard it called, inside you. And I hope that you find that place in the important moments of your life this year and every year from now on. Because you have a queen inside, a king inside. You have a nobility of spirit. We've witnessed it today. And I've witnessed it throughout the years that I've known you. And your job now is to bring that out, not let anything in this world cut down your sense of your own nobility and spirit and courage. I hope you're not called into a danger zone around anything, but I know that when you face whatever situations you do in your life, you bring with you the kinds of values that you demonstrated to us today. And for that, we are all thankful. You have been one of the brightest spots of hope in a very difficult week in this nation. And we love you and we bless you always. Amen.